Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After being wrongly imprisoned for a robbery he did not commit, a young bear must escape from prison to prove his innocence and frame the real culprit before he can escape forever. Today we will recap the story of the 2017 movie, Paddington 2. An old bear couple have a picnic on a bridge in the middle of the forest while planning their trip to London. Suddenly, Lucy spots a cub in the water being carried away by the current and enlists the help of Pastuzo, her companion, to save it. The little one was about to fall into the waterfall, but the old bear manages to rescue him in time. Now the couple can no longer go to London, as they have a cub to take care of. A few years later, young Paddington is living in London together with the Brown family. The young bear loves his new home and is friends with everyone in the neighborhood, but he never forgets to write letters to his Aunt Lucy telling her about his adventures in London. That morning, Paddington goes to Mr. Gruber's artifact store, as he is looking for a birthday present for his Aunt Lucy, who is about to turn 100 years old. Her uncle Pastuzo recently passed away, so Paddington is the only relative the old bear still has. Therefore, he intends to give her something very special. After rummaging through some boxes, the young bear finds an old 3D book, made by a very famous artist. Every time she visited a new city, the woman made a new book so that she could remember every detail in this book perfectly portrayed the city of London. Paddington knows that his aunt's dream is to see England's famous capital, so he comes to the conclusion that this will be the perfect present for her. The bear then begins to imagine what it would be like to introduce the town to his aunt through that book and is eager to send it as a gift. However, Mr. Gruber states that there is a problem. That 3D book is exclusive, because it was the only one to be created by the artist, so it costs a lot of money. So, in order to pay for the artifact, Paddington decides to get a job and says that he will soon have enough money to buy it. His first job is as a cleaner in a barber shop, but when a customer shows up asking for a haircut, the bear decides to serve him, since the barber had to leave. However, when he picks up the machine, Paddington gets tangled in the wires and ends up accidentally shaving a part of Gerald's head. Then the wire attaches itself to the fan and the young bear starts spinning on the ceiling until he is thrown through the window. Seeing the damage it has caused, the bear tries to fix the haircut and uses marmalade to stick the hair back in place. However, when the man realizes what has happened, he orders him to take the product off his head, at which point the owner of the barbershop appears. After causing so much trouble, Paddington is fired and goes to spend the night at an amusement park with his family. After eating a toffee apple, the bear goes to see the show of the new resident of his neighborhood. Phoenix Buchanan is a famous former actor who now makes a living doing TV commercials. The man is looking for a volunteer to help him inaugurate the steam fair and Paddington is chosen for the job. Before making the opening, Buchanan asks what the bear would like to win if he could fulfill any wishes. At that moment, he reveals that he would like to give the 3D book made by Madame Kozlova's great-great-grandmother as a birthday present to his Aunt Lucy. Upon hearing this, the actor becomes interested in learning more about the book and asks where Paddington found it, as he believed it to be lost. The next day, the bear starts his new job and begins washing his neighbor's windows in exchange for money. However, Paddington is not a very skilled window cleaner and ends up having a few accidents before he gets used to his new job. Mr. Curry is one of the residents of the neighborhood and has never liked the bear, so he is always trying to get his neighbors to turn against him. However, Paddington has already managed to captivate the residents of that neighborhood with his friendliness, and is quickly able to fill his large jar of coins with the money he receives for his services. If everything keeps going as planned, in a few days he will have enough money to buy his aunt's present. One evening, while walking through the city streets after a hard day's work, the bear looks through the window of Mr. Gruber's store and spots the 3D book. Just then, he hears a noise and realizes that a thief is trying to break into the antique store. In an attempt to stop him, Paddington chases him, but when the man steals the book, the alarm goes off and the police are called. Seeing the thief trying to escape, the young bear goes after him and ends up being pointed out as a suspect by the police, who see him running out of the establishment. The fugitive then uses a bicycle to try to escape and Paddington hitches a ride with a street dog to chase him. However, they end up going their separate ways before the bear can retrieve the book and Paddington decides to take a shortcut. During the escape, the thief ends up losing his bicycle and must run on foot, but when the bear approaches, he uses a magic trick to disappear without a trace. Minutes later, the police show up and Paddington is taken as the prime suspect for the robbery. The Brown family tries to prevent the bear's arrest, but there is nothing they can do to save him. While neighbors lament the animal's arrest, Mr. Curry claims that he was right all along, as he knew Paddington could not be trusted. That night, Buchanan celebrates the fact that he was not caught and is happy to discover that the bear took all the blame for the theft. Thus, the policeman will not look for him. Although he lost his acting career several years ago, Buchanan has a collection of costumes hidden in the attic of his house. While talking to his mannequins, the man reveals that this is no ordinary book, for on each page is a clue that, when put together, will reveal the location of Madame Kozlova's treasure. When the day of the trial arrives, Paddington discovers that the judge in charge of his case is the man he received at the barbershop and soon realizes that his chances of being exonerated have diminished. After hearing all the witnesses, who testified in favor of the bear, the judge hears from the expert who analyzed the scene, and the man reveals that paw prints were found everywhere in the store, as well as remnants of marmalade that were scattered around the place. Therefore, Gerald invites Buchanan to the courtroom to testify, and his words will be decisive for that trial. After taking an oath, the man reveals that he was awake that night and, looking out the window, saw Paddington running with a street dog, but no sign of the alleged thief. The lawyer then shows a drawing made by Mary Brown based on the bear's descriptions and asks if Buchanan saw that man that night, but the actor says no. Based on these allegations, the judge finds Paddington guilty and sentences him to serve 10 years in prison. That same day, the young bear is guided to his new home, and upon arriving in his cell, he writes a letter to his Aunt Lucy. Not wanting to worry her, the bear only tells her that he had to move away for a while, but says that he will soon return to the Browns' home. Meanwhile, his family is spreading posters all over town in an attempt to find the real culprit for the theft of the valuable book. By now, Buchanan has begun to collect the clues pointed out in the book and is in search of the treasure. On his first morning in the penitentiary, Paddington tries to get along with the prisoners, but soon realizes that the environment is more hostile than he imagined. He is sent to take care of the laundry and separates all the clothes by color before putting them in the machine. However, by an oversight, the bear ends up mixing a red sock with the uniforms and everything gets stained. During lunch, all the prisoners are furious with the little guy because their uniforms are pink. After sitting down, Paddington tries the porridge that was served and discovers that that food is terribly bad. He then asks his colleagues why they have never talked to the boss and is advised never to talk to Knuckles, otherwise he will be served as dinner. However, the young bear decides to ignore this warning and gently goes to talk to the cook. At that moment, everyone watches, waiting for the moment when Paddington will be massacred. After spilling sauce on the chef's apron and hitting him on the head with a baguette, the bear sees his life hanging by a thread. Knuckles is amazed by the taste and asks the bear for help in preparing the recipe, and seals a friendship treaty with him. That night, the Browns go to the amusement park to talk to Madame Kozlova about their great-great-grandmother in order to understand the real reason why the thief stole the book from the antique store instead of some other object of greater value. The woman then reveals that her great-great-grandmother was very famous for her work. Every time she performed, she received gifts and made a large fortune. This aroused the attention of the magician, who began to envy her and desire her treasure. In order to get his hands on the jewels of the artist, the man was able to cause her to perish. He then went to his trailer and opened the safe. However, instead of the treasure, he found only one of the 3D books. Later, his crime was discovered and the subject was surrounded, but managed to escape. Since then, neither he nor the treasure has been found. While preparing to check out the next clue, Buchanan dresses up as a nun and investigates St. Paul's Cathedral without arousing suspicion. At 5 a.m., Knuckles wakes Paddington to prepare the marmalade that will be served during breakfast and decides to read his newspaper while the little bear works alone. However, after facing the cook, the young bear manages to convince him to help in the preparation and they both work together in the kitchen. The next morning, the newspaper announces the attack on St. Paul's Cathedral, which had one of its statues destroyed by a nun. Judy, Mary, and Jonathan go to talk to one of the security guards in hopes of getting more information about what happened and discover that the nun was seen during the escape. In her haste to escape, she accidentally knocked over the statue. Mary then asks the security guard to describe the woman and draws another picture of the possible suspect. In the penitentiary, when the prisoners try the marmalade sandwich, Knuckles is thrilled to realize that they finally liked his food and, for the first time, is applauded for his work. On that day, some men volunteer to help in the kitchen and prepare different recipes so that everyone can have a real feast. In this way, Paddington manages to transform that hostile environment into a friendly place, where all the residents have fun together and share beautiful leisure time. After a few days in prison, the bear receives a visit from his relatives and discovers that they are only a few steps away from finding the real criminal. In an attempt to help Paddington break free from prison, his new colleagues get together to give the Brown family some tips, and after seeing Mary's drawings, Knuckles suspects that those criminals were in costume. The next morning, Mary is distributing the mugger's pictures at a newsstand when she receives an invitation from Buchanan to come to his house. The actor is interested in knowing details about the investigation, and when he starts talking about the thief, he, without realizing it, ends up saying a compliment. Buchanan claims that the criminal has beautiful blue eyes and Mary wonders how he can know this, since his drawings are in black and white. At that moment, she looks closely at her neighbor's face and realizes that he is the thief, who has used various disguises to avoid being caught. Immediately, the woman rushes home and shares her theory with the rest of the family, but Henry does not believe his wife and comes to the conclusion that she is delusional. In his cell, Paddington is able to communicate with his friends through the pipes and discovers that they are willing to help him clear his name, since he has been wrongly imprisoned. However, to do this, a way to escape from that prison must be found, and Knuckles claims to have a plan. Believing that the Browns will be able to prove his innocence, the bear refuses the proposal and decides to trust his family. The next morning, the Brown family begins their plan to unmask Buchanan, and Mrs. Bird distracts the delivery man while Mary hides in a large box inside the van. Minutes later, the box is delivered to the actor's address. As he is about to open it, his phone begins to ring and the man receives an invitation to come to the restaurant to talk about a new film he has been invited to participate in. Immediately, Buchanan leaves the house on his way to the restaurant and Mary begins her investigation. While brushing his teeth, Henry sees his wife at the actor's house and decides to go after her. After knocking over the jug that was on the kitchen table, the man tries to convince her to leave, but Mary is determined to find the 3D book. On his way to the restaurant, Buchanan realizes that he has forgotten his tie and decides to go back home to get it. Meanwhile, Mary spots 2 marks on the carpet and soon suspects that there is a hidden passage in the ceiling. After finding the ladder, her suspicions are confirmed and the woman finds the secret room. When they enter the attic, the couple is surprised to find numerous costumes, and Mary soon realizes that they have been used by the actor to impersonate different characters in order to throw the police off guard. Suddenly, the pair hears the door open and realizes that their neighbor has come home. They quickly go downstairs and try to hide, but Buchanan realizes that there is someone in his house and begins to search for the intruder. To his surprise, he finds Henry trying to hide behind the sofa, and soon after he spots Mary behind the curtains. The couple then states that they were inspecting the house to ensure the safety of the place, and Buchanan kindly asks them to leave. He then goes to check if the book is still safe and is relieved to confirm that the artifact remains hidden in his drawer. He has already collected all the clues present in the book and has come to the conclusion that those letters he drew in his notebook are nothing more than musical notes, to be played on the steam fair. After the discovery, the Brown family rushes to the police station and tries to explain the situation to a policewoman, but the woman says that she must have the book with the actor's fingerprints in order to open an investigation against him. As they have spent the entire day trying to collect evidence to exonerate Paddington, the young bear's family end up missing visiting hours, and the poor bear begins to imagine that he has been forgotten by his family. During the night, he remembers his home in the forest and begins to think about his Aunt Lucy. The little bear misses the old bear very much and can't wait to be able to meet her again. Suddenly, he hears Knuckles' voice coming from the pipes, and the cook informs him that the escape will take place that night. Believing he has been forgotten, Paddington decides to escape from prison for a chance to prove his innocence. Hours later, when the lights go out, the 4 friends use a trap door to escape from their cells and make their way to a slide, which leads them to the laundry room. Then Paddington takes advantage of his diminutive size to slip between the gears of a clock and steal the key that opens the exit gate. When they reach the top of one of the towers, the group of prisoners improvises a balloon to escape and celebrate their long-dreamed freedom. Minutes later, when they are at a safe distance from the penitentiary, they land the balloon and the bear discovers that he has been tricked. Contrary to what Knuckles said, his friends did not intend to help him clear his name. Instead, they planned to flee to another country and take Paddington along with them. The moment he discovers the truth, the young bear feels very disappointed, because he does not want to live as a fugitive. His greatest wish is to be able to prove his innocence and return to the Brown family home, but he finds that he will need to do this alone. The bear then walks cautiously through the cold streets of London and has to hide every time a car approaches. Spotting a phone booth, Paddington decides to use his only coin to call home, but his message ends up being sent to the answering machine. In a few words, he informs that he has escaped from prison and says goodbye to his family. However, soon after leaving the cabin, the phone rings and the young bear manages to talk to his family, who have just arrived home and hear his message. The Browns reveal the identity of the real thief and try to figure out what his next move will be. Paddington then reveals that the last page of the 3D book depicts the steam fair, and his family members soon come to the conclusion that this will be Buchanan's next destination. So they arrange to meet there, but the problem is that the fair is being taken out of town at that time. So the family has to run to the train station and the bear catches a ride with the garbage truck. To avoid being recognized at the station, Paddington uses a garbage can to camouflage himself and walks towards the tracks. At this time, he spots a bald man entering one of the cars and soon realizes that this is Buchanan using yet another disguise. Immediately, the bear jumps on the train, and when the Browns arrive at the station, there is no more time to board. To reach it, They must board a steam train, and Jonathan is the conductor. Meanwhile, the three fugitives are in a helicopter about to leave England when they hear an announcement on the radio that the police are after Paddington. Upon hearing this, Knuckles feels guilty for having abandoned his friend. By this time, Buchanan has found the steam fare and uses the notes he made in the 3D book to find the hidden treasure. In an attempt to retrieve the book, Paddington uses a pair of toffee apples to cling to the train and walk on the roof. When the vehicle goes through a tunnel, the bear almost has a serious accident, but manages to duck before the collision happens and gets into the wagon. While Buchanan is amazed to see the beautiful treasure for the first time, the bear takes the opportunity to retrieve the book. However, he is caught trying to escape and accidentally presses a button that causes the treasure to be hidden again. Therefore, he has to go after the book once again. Meanwhile, Henry helps Judy and Mrs. Bird cross over to the train where Paddington is and ends up almost falling in the road when the tracks pull away. However, his mother-in-law manages to pull him out in time. The bear is being chased by the actor when he realizes that he is surrounded because he has reached the end of the train. He is about to be cornered when Buchanan falls into one of the wagons and is confronted by the Browns, but uses a sword to defend himself. Ms. Bird quickly grabs a shotgun to confront him, but soon discovers that the gun is a toy and fires only rubber darts. After handcuffing the trio, the man goes after the bear, who is trying to cross over to the steam train using his window cleaning ladder. However, upon spotting him, Buchanan pulls him back in and manages to steal the book again. He then traps Paddington in the last carriage and detaches him from the rest of the vehicle. He then changes the course of the tracks so that the bear falls into the lake just below the bridge. With the book in hand, Buchanan is attacked by Henry and ends up fainting. Seeing that Paddington has fallen into the lake, Mary asks her son to stop the train and dives in to save the bear. However, she cannot open the chains and the young bear is about to drown. He has already accepted his sad fate when Knuckles and his friends show up to help him and manage to free the little bear. When he reaches the surface, Paddington passes out and does not wake up until 3 days later, on his Aunt Lucy's 100th birthday. The little guy is home and finds out that Buchanan has been arrested for stealing the 3D book. This means that he has been cleared of all charges. Paddington feels bad about not being able to send any gifts to his aunt, but the Brown family invites him into the living room, where his neighbors are gathered and eager to see him. The bear wanted to give the 3D book as a present so that his Aunt Lucy could see London. But his family and friends decided to do something better. Suddenly the doorbell rings and Mary asks Paddington to answer the door. At that moment, after so many years, he is finally reunited with his Aunt Lucy and is very happy to know that he will be able to introduce the town to her in person. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.